Hello and welcome to a quick Q&A session that's dedicated to the pattern that's coming out tomorrow. And my name is Jeanette. I'm the designer behind Zaneteknits, and this is London Memory Socks. Coming out tomorrow, it's another addition to the Memory Socks series. And in this Q&A, I will tell you about the inspiration, the sizes that will be available, the yarn, needles and gauge, as well as the interesting construction and techniques used in this pattern, and some possible modifications. So feel free to interrupt and ask any questions as they arise. I will do my best to try and spot them and answer right away. So without further ado, here we go. London Memory Socks. London was the place where I was with Leon this summer on a World Knitting Public Day event organized by Cambridge Yarn Festival. And it was the London Yarn Crawl, and we were visiting 3 yarn shops in the northern London area, and it was more than 10 of us there, and we were all a big group trying to get to places using the London Underground and the buses and all the transport for London has to offer. So I think the first thing that you can notice is I've tried to replicate the Transport for London logo in the foot section, and then the thought for the leg section is the city skyline that we saw with all the tall buildings. So that's where the inspiration comes from. But the most interesting part is the construction of these socks, and I'll get to more details about it in the construction section. But this is actually an afterthought heel, and that's because one of the participants of the yarn crawl was sitting behind us on the bus and working away on this very long sock tube, and she said that she always does afterthought heels, especially if she's socializing, because then you can just let go and just knit around a long tube, and then when you're by yourself and you have some time to focus, you can then add the heel, because then you need to do a little bit of maths and some counting, etc. So I thought that it's time for me to try an afterthought heel, and this is the first time I've tried the afterthought heel, but it's not your typical afterthought heel either. I have tried to add the Dutch heel. As you can see, it's not shaped the same as the toe, which is what you typically get for an afterthought heel. There isn't much thinking, you just knit back and knit around and make the decreases as you would for the trapezoid toe. But yeah, so this time it's a Dutch afterthought heel, and it fits really nicely, I find. I mainly did that as an experiment to see if it can be done, and of course it can be done. So it's a little bit fiddly, but it does produce, in my opinion, a better fit. And for maximum good fit, it also has a gusset, so you'll see that the foot stitches, they're more the circumference around the foot where the heel starts is bigger than where the leg is. So yeah, basically I think let me just talk a little bit about the sizes and gauge and yarn, and then I'll jump right into the construction in more details. So as usual, the sock pattern comes in 3 sizes. I myself made the second size, but there's one size smaller, one size bigger as well. And the finished foot circumference is 17 centimeters or 6 inches and 3/4 for the smallest. And the biggest size has 23 centimeters or 9 inches around the foot. As usual, for my colorwork socks, I have made the leg circumference slightly bigger than the foot to make sure that your heel can pass through the leg, because this the colorwork, the stranded colorwork, doesn't have as much give as one color knitting, so it's not as stretchy, but making the leg slightly bigger will help with the fit. Of course, it's a toe-up sock. Of course, that makes the leg infinitely adjustable. You could repeat the same pattern twice and maybe do some increases to turn this into a I don't know, thigh high sock or over the knee high sock. But that's what a toe-up sock lets you do. Also, the foot length is easily adjustable. There's instructions for how to figure out when to start the gusset increases, even if your row gauge doesn't match. The one thing to note is that this yarn is actually from the fiber company. It's called Amble. It's their sock yarn, but it is ever so slightly thicker than the traditional typical sock yarn would be. So the gauge is also a little bit bigger than would be for traditional sock yarn. So if you have sock yarn in stash, you might want to add something little like a strand of mohair or something or a strand of lace to get the gauge. The gauge is 28 stitches and 36 rows in 10 centimeters or 4 inches. So yeah, it's, if you stick to typical sock yarn, it might be too drapey or too loose of a knit fabric. So something, it feels like you need to add something. But if you have the fiber company Amble, you should have no problem getting the gauge. I use needle size 2.75 millimeters for these. If you are a tighter knitter, you can probably go with bigger needles or smaller needles as necessary. And the pattern is written for DPNs as well as circular needles, so you can use your favorite method there. And I'll start on the construction and the techniques used. So the sock is started at the toe with Judy's Magic Cast On, and then with lifted increases we get to the full width of the full circumference of the foot, and then we work the color work chart for the foot all the way to where the gusset should start. And we make gusset increases by adding it at the center of the sole. And there comes the fun part. So the heel doesn't exist. We add waist yarn heel placement. I can't really demo it very well because the heel is there now. But you just have to imagine that this is a bit of waist yarn that I'm adding, where I'll know that that's where I'm gonna have to pick up stitches for the heel after I finish the whole sock. Well, to be fair, I didn't finish the whole sock before I added the heel because I got to about here and then I added the heel because I wanted to try it on to see how long I should make the sock. But for the second sock, that was already figured out, so I could just finish it and only then worry about the heel. So yeah, once you have a full repeat of the foot chart complete, you can switch to the leg chart and work in the round all the way to the cuff, which is done in 1 by 1 twisted rib, and finally stitches are bound off using a tubular bind off because it's very stretchy, and for a toe-up sock you need a stretchy bind off to be able to get your heel through. And once that's all done, we return to where we placed the waist yarn, pick up stitches around the waist yarn, and remove the waist yarn, and we end up with a hole that we have to fill. And we knit the heel flap flat back and forth across the leg stitches, and then we turn the heel, and finally we graft together the remaining heel stitches with the gusset increased stitches here using Kitchener stitch. Et voila! the sock is done. And yeah, I guess there wasn't much to it, but you end up with a nicely fitting sock, and the pattern also has a video of a montage of all the steps that I took to make the heel. There is a long version on YouTube which is included in the pattern if you want to have a look at it before you decide on whether you want to try this or not. And that's it on the construction and the techniques. And now we can talk about possible modifications. Obviously, you could make the sock without the gusset and just knit the traditional tube as you would, but that would end up with a simpler project maybe, but a less nice fit, especially if you have a higher arch. And you could also do the typical toe kind of shaped heel here as well. You just have to be careful to divvy up the stitches between the back and the front, or the foot, the sole and the leg, so that you end up with equal number of stitches on both sides. And what else could be a modification? You could stick to using this stitch pattern throughout the sock, which could create a fairly cute sock. Or yeah, you could not do any color work at all and still try this sock construction in a color changing yarn or self-striping yarn, if you don't want to go through following the color work charts. And as I previously said, you can make them as short or as long as you want. I think there were some test knitters who just did 2 of these and stopped the color work there for a bit of a shorter sock, because yeah, let's face it, it's quite a long sock, but winter is coming and that's good. I don't really know what else I can add other than the pattern is officially coming tomorrow, officially launching tomorrow. If you are a newsletter subscriber, there's a question or a comment. I think I need to make a hat with that color work chart. Yeah, a hat with the color work chart would look really nice. It's just an 8 stitch repeat, and you have yourself a London hat. Especially, one of the test knitters was using the London Underground logo colors and took a photo of her wearing the sock by a tube station name, and that looks so adorable. Really ultra cute, and yeah, it really resembled the essence of London. I used to live there for, right now I live just outside London, but I used to live in central London for a while, and the London Underground, or the Transport for London logo, is, you can't miss it if you're in London, and if you work there and commute, even more. So very full of memories, not just of that amazing yarn crawl day, but also from life in general. Where was I? Yeah, so if you're a newsletter subscriber, you will get an email with your special discount code. If you're not a newsletter subscriber, we will have an intro discount here on Instagram and other social media as well. But if you'd like to become a newsletter subscriber, make sure you can go to our website, and there should be a stay updated box where you can enter your email address and watch this space. The newsletter will also contain a test call for another sock pattern. And I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for watching the recording if that's what you're doing, and I appreciate all your comments, and can't wait to share this pattern with you. See you next time.